Welcome to this episode of Johanna's ISO purchases, blocking out blue light glasses. If you haven't already noticed, I'm offended. I got a new rug. One sec. New rug. Just joking. Welcome back to Real Talk. Today you'll be meeting Edwina, and I'm really excited for you to hear about her experience, about her rural placement in Euroa. So tune in.
This is the neatest that my hair will get, unfortunately.
You're fine. Again, washed my hair for the first time in about 8 days this morning, which was great. So welcome, Edwina, to our third episode, actually, of Real Talk. And today we're just wanting to ask you some questions and get your idea and opinions on your experience and a little bit of knowledge about that, and then some advice for future students.
Cool.
And also your advice and opinion on Euroa, which is where you place. But we'll find a little bit more about that as we go along.
Yeah.
But firstly, could you please tell me your name, what you're studying, and at what university?
Yeah. So my name's Edwina. I'm doing a master in clinical psychology at Victoria University.
Wow, that's awesome. Very impressive. And where was your placement at, and for how long?
So my placement was at Centre for You in Euroa. So I was there 2 days a week. So one day was at Centre for You, which is a private clinic, and then the other day was at Euroa Primary School. And I was there for, I think it ended up being about 6 months, but because COVID started in the middle of that, there was a period of time where I wasn't going in, and we're transitioning to telehealth and doing all that sort of thing. So
how was that experience with telehealth?
It was challenging, that's for sure. I think with my adult clients it was fine because they're obviously able to talk about their feelings and just generally be sorry, my sister is in the background making a lot of noise there.
You're fine.
They were able to communicate through telehealth, but it was when I was working with the kids that I found really challenging. There were some kids that didn't have access to things like laptops with webcam. So there were times that I had to talk to kids over the phone, which was really, really challenging because these are like primary school kids. So they're all around, I think they were around the ages of 10. So yeah, during COVID, that was definitely an interesting time. But working there in person was amazing. I've always lived in Melbourne. So I've always lived in the suburbs. And going to Euroa, which is a completely different experience to where I live, it was actually really fun. I found it really, really enjoyable because it was so different.
Right. So that was actually leading into my next question. So did you have any prior knowledge of a rural setting or your clinical practice in a rural setting at all prior to going to Euroa?
No, I mean, when we were younger, we used to go on family trips to rural areas. But besides that, we didn't. I've not ever really worked in or lived in or even really know anyone that lives in rural settings. So yeah, completely different. And I guess that's why the placement was so attractive to me as well. It's not that it's easy to get work down in Melbourne, but it is very different, and I wanted to be able to experience, I guess, different things for placement, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
also I know that rural areas are severely underfunded. They don't have as many facilities as metropolitan Melbourne does. So I guess I wanted to also play my part in helping out with that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in that, again, following on from that, do you think that you made some sort of difference with your placement in that particular practice?
So this is something that I struggled with while I was there. And I was actually talking to a girl who did her placement in Euroa and was currently working as a general psych. And I think it was when I'd finished at the primary school and come back to the clinic to return some stuff. And I was just saying, the kids that I worked with, I'm only there for 6 months. I don't know how much change I can incite when I was not seeing the change myself. And what she said was, and that stuck with me since I've heard it, is that it's not about changing their lives completely, but if you can make one tiny part of their life more bearable, that's still a change that they will see and they can enact out. So I guess once I started thinking of things that way, it became easier to do the placement. So rather than thinking, okay, I'm going to change every aspect of their distress or their emotional responses, working with the client to figure out what they want to work on, what small part they want to change, and go from there was what helped me, I guess, thinking about changes that I've made in the people that I've worked with. It was very much, you couldn't really vet who you got as a client. So in our internal placements, they would sort of go through if clients were too, if clients were inappropriate in that they needed more specialized help, they would be told to go to a different place or referred on. Whereas in a rural placement, and especially in Euroa, that being the only clinic in that sort of area, you kind of you couldn't just work with, things that you've already worked with, such as depression, anxiety. You see a range of different psychological, I can't think of the word now, but a range of different sort of psychological illnesses across the span. So that was definitely one. And the other one was also working with kids. So at the clinic, I staunchly refused to work with kids. And this was something I talked to my supervisor about as well. And I guess because I was forced to dedicate one day a week to work with kids, it was something that I found to be really rewarding at the end of the day, because kids are just so, they just get so excited to, do new things, and you can be more creative with them. We did a lot of play therapy, or we did drawing cartoons to show how they felt, and they just get really, really into it. And especially the kids that I was seeing, a lot of them had, 4 or 5 brothers and sisters. So it was one day a week where they could come in, all the attention was on them, and they just loved it. So
yeah, that's awesome. That'd be really rewarding.
Yes, definitely.
And do you see yourself maybe down in your career at some point, starting or pursuing your career in a rural setting?
I would love to. I would honestly love to do that. Since completing this placement, I have been thinking about how that could work out with other things that are going in my life. I guess the only things that are stopping me would be things like relationships, living out of home, because I live at home at the moment. Sure. So having that money to be able to live out of home, that sort of thing. But it definitely is something that I have considered, and I'm still considering. I'm actually looking at doing another placement in Bendigo. So even though I don't think it'll be as rural as Euroa, I think it'll still be a good experience. So
absolutely. And now to the Going Rural Health team. How was it like dealing with Going Rural Health, and did you feel supported throughout your placement?
Yeah. A lot of the time I would forget to email the Going Rural Health team, so they would get back to me, and I found them to be really helpful. So if I had forgotten to upload something, or if I'd forgotten to send something through, they would just be like, send it to us, we can do it for you, that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely.
On to questions about your ROA.
Yeah.
So rather than quiz you, I thought that might be a little bit harsh, because you're a Metro student, so it's a little bit difficult. But I thought it'd be interesting to finish the sentence. So I'll start a sentence, and then you have to finish it with question. So first sentence is Euroa opened my eyes to?
Definitely the complexities that people in rural areas face. A lot of it, even just occupations. I had a kid, and I remember I was talking to his dad about just normal history gathering, and I asked him his occupation, and he said he was a farmer, and I was like, really? That's an actual occupation out here? I felt so out of my league.
Oh, I love that.
Things like that, just so surprising. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, best takeaway food in Euroa is?
I didn't experience any takeaway food because I was so poor.
I mean, student life, I suppose, but yeah.
Exactly. There was a cafe down there that made really, really good coffees. I can't remember the name of it, but it would get to like 11 o'clock on a Friday, and my supervisor would just be like, okay, let's just go get coffees because we're all fading. So we go to the same one there. But yeah, generally I did not have a lot of money, so I would actually prepare my food at home and then take it all up with me. Also because I'd heard that a lot of places closed really early. And I think I remember saying to you, there's no Uber Eats or anything like that. Yeah. So I was like, I would rather be prepared than get to like 6 p.m. and everything's closed and have to starve.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the most charming part of Euroa is?
Oh, definitely the kids. The kids were amazing. They were just... I know that for the first year of my training, I was just very much like, I don't want to work with kids. And even the kids that a lot of my friends at uni worked with in Melbourne, they didn't have, that's what they had bad experiences, but they were kind of just normal experiences. But the kids that I worked with were just so lovely. And you could like, they were just raised to be so polite and kind. And I don't know, I think that was probably the most charming part of Euro for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Which surprised me, so there's that.
Love it. And finally, your advice to future students considering rural placement.
Honestly, you got to do it. Like, it's really, really rewarding. I guess for me, I also had reservations because I obviously come from a different culture. And I was a little bit worried about how people would receive someone from a different culture, but it was just so not one person made me feel uncomfortable for being from a different place in the world. People that, I guess because their facilities are so, they don't have as much facilities, people are extra motivated to make the most of the sessions that they've got. And you know, just working with people that are really, really motivated, really, really motivated, it just makes, you know, doing therapy that much easier, I guess. But it's just, for me, it was just a completely different experience. I think I said to you, the whole town had one traffic light. And that was like that I noticed. And I don't know, I guess it just feels different in a good way. It just feels really different. Even things like supervision, you know, at the internal placements, they're very formal, whereas the supervision at a Centre for You, it's not that it was informal, but I just felt that I was able to really be honest about the struggles that I was facing, or I was able to be honest about what I was finding difficult. So I don't know if that's because people in rural areas are generally nicer and more approachable, but it's definitely an amazing experience. I have nothing bad to say about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edwina. That was fantastic. Great advice, good knowledge. It seems like you had a really good placement.
So I'm glad. So good.
All right, doll. Well, that's it. Quick and easy.
Thank you.